Hi, I'm Dan Kellerman, Professor of European Politics at Rutgers University. And I'm going to take the next few minutes to talk about what we can expect from the European Parliament elections, which are getting started today. The first thing I'd say is that the prospects for a populist far-right takeover in the European Parliament have been overhyped in the media. To be sure, the far-right are going to gain seats in this election. However, they're going to remain internally divided, they're going to remain in the minority, and they're going to be increasingly marginalized. With respect to those internal divisions, there's been a lot of talk lately about Matteo Salvini's efforts to bring together all the far right in his new pan-European Euro party, the European Alliance of Peoples and Nations. Now, while that grouping may bring together a bit more of the far right than we've seen united in the past, it will not bring together all the far right. Rather, they're going to remain divided between 2 or 3 Euro parties, which will weaken their influence. The other big factor that's going to affect the far right is that it is clear by now that the center-right European People's Party will refuse to form any kind of coalition with the far right in the European Parliament. A dirty little secret of the European People's Party has been that it has actually provided a political home and political protection for one of the leaders of the European far right in recent years, that is Hungary's Viktor Orban and his Fidesz party. However, in recent weeks, as tensions between Orban and other members of the EPP have exploded, it's become clear for the EPP that this strategy of allying with the far right is not working out well. On top of that, we have the Ibiza-gate or Strache video scandal in Austria, which showed that Sebastian Kurz's strategy of allying with the far right proved poisonous for him. So when you take those together, it's clear now that the center-right will swear off any kind of alliance with the far-right forces in the European Parliament, which will leave them at the margins. So while there will be no far-right takeover of the European Parliament, there will be big changes to the party system within the European Parliament. And the biggest of those changes is fragmentation. In the past, 2 major centrist blocs, the center-right European People's Party and the center-left Party of European Socialists, had a majority of seats and they could run things in the European Parliament together. However, now we're seeing a fragmentation with those 2 dominant blocs losing their majority and the votes going to other parties. So what that will mean is that going forward, you'll need a bigger coalition to run things in the European Parliament. And to avoid working with the far right, that will mean that those 2 big blocs on the center will have to work with others like the Liberals and perhaps the Greens to form a working majority. And in turn, those kind of changes are going to have some big implications for who gets the top jobs in the European Union. Above all, these changes in the party system have big implications for who's going to become the next president of the European Commission. 5 years ago, the European Parliament launched the so-called Spitzenkandidat process. And that was a process in which each of the European political parties or Euro parties put forward a candidate for the Commission presidency ahead of time and then demanded that whichever party won the most seats in the election, their candidate would become the Commission president. Fast forward 5 years to today, and many of the Euro parties wanted to repeat that process. However, the largest party in the European Parliament is once again likely to be the center-right European People's Party, and they put forward as their candidate Manfred Weber. However, it turns out that Weber is going to be really unacceptable to some of the other Euro parties, above all the Liberals, who it turns out are going to be kingmakers in the European Parliament, most likely, for any majority. And then on top of that, in the European Council, you have a lot of heads of government from this liberal bloc, including Macron, who's going to be joining with them, and they're against Weber. They're not very keen on the whole Spitzenkandidat process overall, but they're particularly against Weber. And so that means that I think his prospects to become Commission President will be doomed.